Fantastic. Okay, everyone. Good morning, good morning. Good morning to everyone on Call to Calm. Good morning to everybody over there on YouTube. Good morning to everybody joining us from all over the world. It's wonderful to be with you all. After all this time, still here, expanding, an amazing community. Good morning. Just going to give it a few seconds, wait till everyone hops on, and then I'll get into what I would like to talk about today. Good morning, good morning. It's the favorite part of my day too. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, everyone. All right, so I can't believe it either, Jillian. All right, so much ground to cover, so much to talk about today, and so much of it is pertinent to this particular window of time. So around December the 12th, well, we had our in-person event, and at that in-person event, we just had such a powerful shift. And I love that end of year in-person event because it kind of sets the tone for the following year and gives me an insight into where everybody is. And then shortly after the in-person event, we kind of entered this window of time from December the 12th until December the 21st. And this window of time is very powerful because really what we're focusing on is survival. And what's coming up is stuff that we've held on to in order to survive. So the short version is, the TLDR version is, that at some point you concluded that it wasn't safe and you grabbed a hold of some heightened emotion or some heightened feeling to protect and defend yourself from the world. So basically rage or anger. However, what that is an egoic adaptation, anger. And you subsequently also then built an entire life, your whole life, on trying to rescue and save people from situations that you experienced when you were very young. And so some of you falsely concluded that the reason why your parents were the way they were, the reason why everybody was behaving the way that they were behaving was because you didn't have money. And so you then proceeded to become very financially successful. And of course, that's a giant dead end because no matter how good you get at making money, and no matter how brilliant you are at business, sadly, you can't success your way out of your suffering. Also, no matter how much you give everyone in your life the resources that they need to advocate on behalf of themselves or make loving choices, the reality of the situation is that these people are still the same, and they were even before you were born that way. So the whole success your way out of your suffering, just make more money, everything will be okay, leads you to a dead end, a brick wall. And then that's further compounded by the fact that then you can't rescue and you can't save everyone, and then you punish yourself with some form of addiction. Leave me a 1 or a yes in the chat, let me know how I'm doing. For others of you, you tried a different approach. You tried working on yourself, personal development, you became a people pleaser, you turned yourself inside out, upside down, every which way you could, to try and placate the volatility, the unpredictable nature of those around you. So you don't even know who you are anymore because you're just living your life. You're living a lie and you're just being whoever everyone else needs you to be for them. You don't even know who you are. And you spent your whole life working on yourself in the hope that maybe you're going to crack the code, you're going to fix what's broken, and everyone's going to finally be able to love you. And of course, you arrived at another dead end because no matter how much you work on yourself, seemingly your working on yourself does not change how much people love themselves or how much they accept themselves. which then also subsequently leads to you feeling disappointed, feeling like a failure, and then typically punishing yourself with some form of addiction. And then there's the last one, where you try through your spiritual practices to become one with the universe, because if you became one with the universe, then you could change things. If somehow you were able to align fully with the infinite power, with all that is, then you could alter things, you could have things be different. You'd unlock the magic wand, you'd unlock the ability to all of a sudden edit your reality. And of course, that's a dead end too. And so these three alternatives that you've been presented are just egoic adaptations. But the funny thing is that these adaptations constitute the majority of the world's participation in spiritual and personal development. People aren't transforming. They're adapting. And the reason why they're adapting is because the people that are sharing these techniques and modalities have not accessed the necessary vulnerability to go beyond the need for them. So every one of you has hit a dead end in your journey as it relates to other people. And in hitting that dead end, now you have to come to terms with the fact that there's something beyond that wall, beyond that brick wall that you keep bumping up against. But what's required is the willingness to tell the truth. And that truth is a hard truth to tell, because once you tell this truth, there's nothing left for you. And the truth is as follows, and it's really the truth that sets you free. My ability to make money, to produce, to generate, has not made one iota of a difference in the lives of those that I love. Because even though I have presented them with every financial benefit and opportunity to take care of themselves and advocate on behalf of themselves, they are still only doing so to the degree to which they love themselves, which may only be marginally better than they ever did when I was a child. So the illusion of make more money and everything is going to be okay is a lie. It doesn't work. Okay, well then working on myself. Everyone's told me I have to work on myself. I have to fix, heal, change, and improve myself. If I understand myself, then finally I'm going to figure out what's wrong with me, and then people are going to be able to love me, because my whole life people have told me that I'm the problem, that I'm the issue. And of course it doesn't work, because everyone in your life is still the way that they are. So then the second hard thing that you have to acknowledge is all these years of workshopping, working on yourself, jumping up and down in freezing cold ballrooms, everything that you've been doing in the name of working on yourself has not worked. Making money hasn't worked. Being successful hasn't worked. Working on yourself hasn't worked. Being a people pleaser or a doormat, that hasn't worked. That hasn't worked either. And the interesting thing about the spiritual manifestation of this is the more you try and become one with the universe. See, now this is the hard one. Because when you really get to that point where you're one with the universe, you don't need to change anything. So after a while, you have to get to a place where you recognize that actually that isn't working either. So why have you been so hyper-focused on all of this? Because you've been spending your entire life running away from a singular moment that you haven't been able to embrace. And that moment was the moment when you separated yourself from love, when you decided that there was something wrong with you. And there was some moment of trauma or abuse or neglect or rejection or suffering associated with that moment. See, but instead of accepting the fact that it happened or embracing it, you've participated in the adaptation industry. And the adaptation industry is built on a platform of imperfection. You've been trying to remediate perceived imperfections, imperfections that only exist in the level of your own perception or the level of somebody else's perception. And so it's a vicious cycle. You're doomed if you do, you're doomed if you don't. There's no way out. So what we have to do is tell the truth. And the truth really does set us free, because the truth is the opening to vulnerability. And for some of you, the truth is as follows. Repeat after me if you've tried to success your way out of suffering. If you thought that money was the problem because you blamed poverty for why everybody was the way that they were. No amount of money that I've made has made a difference in the lives of those that I love. They're just who they are. They're exactly the way that they're supposed to be. They're going through exactly what they're supposed to go through. And even though I've presented everyone in my life with every resource and every opportunity to take care of themselves, to fly anywhere in the world, to do everything they have to for themselves, they're only going to act on that to the degree to which they love themselves. Can you leave me a 1 or a yes in the chat if that is you? That you have worked and worked and worked and worked because you misidentified the problem as being poor. And you misidentified dad's drinking and alcoholism. The source of it was that you didn't have money, and that he was always stressed out about money, so he was drinking. Or in that same way, you misidentified not having money as the reason my mom was the way that mom was. But ultimately what you've done is you've assigned blame, you've misidentified and misunderstood, you've assigned blame to something that then you've spent an entire lifetime trying to remediate. And this is why people spend tens of thousands of dollars that they don't have on a credit card to go and learn how to make millions of dollars, because they're still living in the delusion that money makes a difference. That you can just throw money at things. It doesn't work. All the while missing the point, actually, that everyone in your life was exactly the way that they were before you were even born. That it's not your fault, it was never your responsibility, and that none of this has anything to do with you. Alright, so there's that. Then, some of you just became people pleasers. You should be in the hospitality industry. Honestly, you should be a hotel concierge. You have gotten so good at meeting people's needs before they even have them, to avoid the ensuing conflict and barrage of abuse or trauma, that you are well suited for a job in the hospitality industry. You could be a butler or a major domo. You'd be amazing. It's like you psychically know what needs to happen before it even needs to happen. You have this intuitive sense. And this has been the root cause of you working on yourself. Because you falsely concluded, those of you that have been working on yourselves, that you're the problem. Those of you that became successful falsely concluded that being poor was the problem. That all of this chaos that was happening in your life was happening because you didn't have money. Some of you falsely concluded that you were the problem. So then you spent an entire lifetime working on yourselves, trying to change yourselves, trying to figure out how to win friends and influence people. Spending countless hours learning techniques and modalities on manipulation. Transmutation. If I crack the code of working on myself and I solve the problem that I am, then people will finally love me. Leave me a 1 or a yes in the chat if that is you. You have spent the last 40, 50, 30, 20 years of your life working on yourself because you falsely concluded that you were the problem. Some of you go to all this financial stuff because you decided that being poor was the problem. Some of you spent an entire lifetime working yourselves because you concluded that you were the problem. So you don't know who you are anymore. And then finally, some of you embarked on a spiritual metaphysical journey because you wanted to unlock some mystical power, some infinite power. And you were led to believe that if you became one with everything, then you would finally be able to change things in your life. And that's what all this manifestation mumbo jumbo is. It's human beings trying to exert some false sense of control over their lives because they feel powerless. And in all three situations, you feel powerless, by the way. Powerlessness drove you to success. Powerlessness drove you to work on yourself. Powerlessness drove you to countless hours of meditation to become one with creation. And this is why the fruit and the blessing of all of these pursuits has eluded you. Because the root cause of all of it has been explored from a place of incompletion and pain. So at some point you have to tell the truth. That there's no amount of making more money that's made a difference. There's no amount of working on myself that's made a difference. And the more I actually explore my inner reality, the more I am one with everything, the more I experience the perfection of everything. So that's a dead end too. So then what's left? What's left is realizing that it wasn't your fault, beloved. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. The fact that your father was an alcoholic and was abusive and was a rager was not your fault, beloved. The fact that your mum was asleep at the wheel was not your fault. That the trauma was not your fault. That the abuse was not your fault. That the rejection was not your fault. That the abandonment was not your fault. And that it was never your responsibility to fix it. You were just a child. You were just a child. You were just a child. Just a child. That everything that happened was so far beyond your capacity to be with and so far beyond your capacity to integrate at that time. And that everyone in your life was exactly the way that they were before you ever showed up. It's not your fault. You've taken responsibility for something. And you've been trying to resolve something that you cannot resolve. That doesn't need to be resolved. At some point it needs to be accepted. And in the moment that you accept it, in the moment that you make yourself open enough and you express the vulnerability to acknowledge that what happened, you stop being responsible for it. You stop being responsible for it. And then you can finally stop wasting countless hours of your life trying to have it be different when it's never going to be. It's not your fault. It's not your fault that the abuse happened. It's not your fault that people were lost in drugs and alcohol. It's not your fault that the arguments and the violence and the fight. It's not your fault. It's not your fault that what happened to your siblings happened to your siblings. It's not your fault. It's not your fault that what happened to your family happened to your family. It was never your fault. That is too much of a burden to place on any human being's shoulders, let alone a child's. Let alone a child's. So the way through the brick wall, the way through the empty promises, is to be vulnerable, to be honest. And what is that? Absolutely nothing that I've done has made a difference in anyone's life. Everybody is the way that they're supposed to be. But today I'm going to lay this burden down. I'm going to stop carrying it around. I'm going to stop making it my responsibility to figure out how to make everyone else happy, how to make everyone love themselves, how to make sure that everyone's healthy, how to put the fires out before they even start. I'm done tiptoeing around my own life because it's not my fault. And what's happened is that I have just adapted to my life. And you're probably exhausted. And then, of course, you probably punish yourselves with some form of addiction, because no matter how hard you try, everyone in your life is still exactly the way that they were. So, let's tell the truth. There is no success seminar, no strategy, no money magic that has made one iota of a difference in my life. I have been doing things for people who don't love and accept themselves. There's no personal development seminar, no matter how expensive it was, no matter what far off distant land it was in, that has made one iota of a difference in my life. Because everyone in my life is exactly the way that they used to be. They were. They're still the same way. And there's no amount of trying to become one with the universe so I can finally have the power of the infinite to change everything that's made any difference in my life. I cannot provide, protect, or defend anyone from anything. And now, it's probably weighing on you. It's probably affecting your health. It's affecting your mental health. It's affecting your emotional well-being. It's affecting you. And you probably feel like you're living a lie. Probably feel like you're living a lie. So, close your eyes and take some breaths. And we're just going to go through the wall together. And as soon as we go through the wall, because vulnerability allows us to go through the wall, we enter the domain of the heart. And in there is this beautiful little child who's dazed and confused and sad. And we're just going to let this beautiful, sweet being know that it is not its fault. It's not responsible. It's not. Letting this part of you know that you're from the future, 2024. Bloody hell, you're from the future, yes. And that you've come back to let this part of you know that it's not responsible. It was not its fault. That everyone is just a mild version of the same version that they were when you were 5, if they're still alive. All of a sudden, this little sweet being begins to find an instantaneous sense of relief. It's not my fault. And this little sweet being is able to finally let go of all of this stuff that you've spent an entire lifetime trying to figure out. And then after a while, once this little sweet being settles down, which is you explain that you've come here because you're ready to love again. Because you want to know what love is. And you're going to ask this little beautiful manifestation of you that's pure light and pure love to help your heart. To help your heart. All of a sudden, this teeny weeny golden being puts its hand on your heart. And you begin to feel this burden that you've been carrying around for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years being lifted off of you. Countless hours working a job that you couldn't stand, figuring out how to make more money. Countless hours working on money because you believed that poverty was the problem. Countless hours working on yourself because you were led to believe that you were the problem. Countless hours trying to become one with the universe so that you could finally be granted the infinite almighty power of being able to change people and change things. all of a sudden being relieved of all of it. And feeling a sense of peace in your heart, feeling a sense of emptiness, of equanimity and harmony. Well, now this teeny weeny version of you is wonderful. And the 2024 version of you is wonderful too. And after a while, this little sweet being begins to disappear. Thanks you for coming back to get it. Dissolves into light, the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. And what's left in this place and space of the heart is neutrality, equanimity. There is no more heightened emotion. There is no longer any need to adapt. There is no longer an incessant type A driven need to produce and outperform, which is all based in fear and survival. There's no longer any need to work on yourself, spend countless hours in workshops and seminars, hoping that the right person finally gives you the right strategy so that you can solve the problem in the riddle that is you. There's no longer any need to spend 8 hours a day meditating, trying to become one with the universe so you can change your reality, you can change your life. Now, as it relates to all the people that were involved in that moment, and as it relates to everything related to you, there's just a harmony and equanimity and neutrality. And this neutrality is the beginning of an experience that we're going to move into powerfully next year. It's the experience of unending presence. It's not love, because it's not the warm and fuzzy that human beings associate with love. It's beyond love. It's a stillness. It's an emptiness. It's abiding in infinite pure potential. Just take some breaths and gently and slowly feeling yourself back in 2024. And just let me know how you're doing in the chat. Happy holidays, everyone. Merry everything. Fixing, healing, changing, and improving doesn't work. Truth works. Vulnerability works. Love works. Acceptance works. There is not a single other thing that you've done that's made one iota of a difference in your life. Because all of the transformation industry is just the adaptation industry. And the adaptation industry is a product of the imperfection economy. It preys on people's insecurities and perceived inadequacies. You know, I can't find anything wrong with you. And if poverty was really the reason why everyone in your life behaved the way that they behaved, then you would have solved it by now. Look at you, you successful, blinged out human, I love you. If working on yourself were really the solution, you'd have solved that riddle by now. Look at you, you've workshopped yourself to death, some of you. If becoming one with the universe were really the answer, well, everything would have already have been changed by now. It's not like you haven't devoted enough time to it. It was never your fault. It was never your fault. You're a child. It was never your fault. And it was never your fault, and therefore it was never your responsibility. You have been working towards something that does not need to be worked toward. I love you all. All right. Let's meditate, shall we? Close your eyes and open your palms and just breathe and relax. Good morning, sweet friends, and welcome to another Called Calm meditation. I just want to reach through the screen and give you all a big hug. Some of you have spent your entire lives becoming successful, working on yourselves, countless hours meditating, in the hope that one day you'll finally be able to figure out the root cause of the problem, and the people in your life will finally be able to love you and accept you for who you are. The only problem is that all of these people in your life didn't love themselves long before you showed up. And all of these incompletions and inconsistencies existed in their experience before you were even a thought in the mind of anybody. At some point you have to realize that whatever it was that happened to you was not your fault. You were a sweet, innocent little kid. And that somebody acted out their distortions on you. Somebody who could not be accountable and responsible for themselves allowed themselves to be overwhelmed by survival, and that survival got acted out on you in whatever form it did. It's not your fault, beloved. You're not the problem. There's no amount of money that solves this. There's no amount of becoming a people pleaser or working on yourself that solves this, and there's no amount of meditation that changes it. At some point, you have to let yourself off the hook. And you have to realize for the first time ever that you weren't responsible for any of this, you beautiful being. You weren't. You weren't responsible for any of it. And therefore, it is not your responsibility to change it. In this powerful window of time, through December the 12th, through December the 21st, you are being given an incredible opportunity to leave all forms of survival behind. And survival translates in your experience as adaptation. Because really, you haven't been transformed. You don't need to be transformed. You've been taught to adapt. In the same way that a lab rat adapts to its conditions. In that same way, human beings have found ways to adapt to whatever they have that they've been unable to accept within them. Adaptation is not transformation. And this is why no matter how much money you make, how much you work on yourself, and how much you meditate to become one with the universe to try and change things, it doesn't work. So today we're going to walk through a doorway together. And this is a doorway into neutrality, into stillness, into an unending experience of presence, which is the truth of who and what you are. Close your eyes, you beautiful beings. Open your palms and take some long, deep cleansing breaths. Resting in the awareness of your breath transforms your life into a living meditation. Becoming aware of your every in-breath and observing every out-breath. This morning you find yourself in the thing that you've been doing to try and make everything better in your life. Some of you see, feel, hear, and experience yourselves in the office or wherever you conduct your business, working incessant hours, trying to make everything okay for everyone. Some of you find yourselves in hotel ballrooms, learning strategies, learning techniques, modalities, things that you believe are going to better equip you to people please and just get along and placate other people. And others of you find yourselves in ashrams and meditation rooms all over the world, trying to become one with the universe. All of a sudden, an old friend comes walking in through your door, your office door, the door of the ballroom where the seminar is, or the door of your meditation room, grabs you by your hand, and then proceeds to lead you outside of the room. As soon as you find yourself beyond the threshold of your doorway, the doorway into your office, your place of business, the place where you offer your contribution to the world, beyond the threshold of your ashram, your retreat center, your personal development, hotel ballroom, seminar space, you find yourself in a field of pure potential. There's just a perpetual stillness here. It's so still and so calm and so peaceful. That it cannot be disturbed. In the presence of this stillness, whatever it was that turned you into a type-A-driven individual who falsely diagnosed poverty as the problem begins to lift up and out of you. Your adrenals breathing a sigh of relief. Your nervous system doing the Macarena. And your entire body feeling like you just received the best massage of your life. Except this feeling never goes away. There is no stress here, just stillness. The part of you that falsely diagnosed yourself to be the problem and then spent an entire lifetime in workshops and seminars, trying to figure out the solution to the problem that is you, finally getting in touch with how sad you really are. And how you've spent an entire lifetime trying to prove that you're worthy of love, only to discover now that the people that you've been trying to get to love you never loved themselves in the first place. Crossing the threshold into this infinite stillness, leaving behind the confines of the meditation room, the retreat center, the ashram, the ballroom where you meditate for 12 hours a day thinking that that's the answer. Because you wanted to change something. Change people, change yourself. Be granted some power of manifestation so you can alter God's perfect creation. Being freed of the fear and the unworthiness that fueled that pursuit. Freed of the fear of poverty that fueled your success. Freed of the profound sadness associated with feeling like you're the problem incessantly. That it's your fault, that you were to blame. And freed of the unworthiness and insecurity that led to countless hours of meditation. Freed of every form of egoic adaptation that you've participated in. The adaptation industry, the imperfection economy. All of it falling away. All of it dissolving. All of it coming to a finality. Realizing for the first time ever that none of it was necessary, because none of it was ever your fault. Putting that boulder, that burden down, getting it off of your back, your shoulders. None of this was necessary, because none of this was my fault. I'm not responsible for any of it. And it is not my responsibility to fix it. All of the stress, all of the overwhelm, all of the illusion, lifting up and out of you in the presence of this stillness. Everything profoundly still. Equanimity. Neutrality. And nothing disturbs it. You are at peace. Everything that's contributed to all of the ways that you've treated yourself also falling away and being lifted off of you. Realizing that there is no need for an answer, because the problem was just an interpretation that was formed in the mind of an innocent child who was made to feel responsible for something that it was never responsible for in the first place. Freed of the need for an answer. Profound stillness. Never-ending presence. Peace. All of a sudden you look around and you can't find what was driving you anymore. There's just stillness in every direction. This experience of stillness is the experience of your being. this equanimity and neutrality, is your life lived and experienced as your soul. Who you really are, what you really are, why you're really here. Today, I embrace and accept this stillness as my truth. Take some breaths, and gently and slowly you may bring your awareness back. It was not your fault. You were never to blame. It was never your responsibility in the first place. You don't need to spend the rest of your life looking for an answer, because the problem was conceived in the mind of an innocent child who was overwhelmed and ill-equipped for whatever happened. But as of today, you are not that sad, scared, and confused child anymore. You are the infinite, eternal, unending experience of presence. And that is not something that you access through becoming successful. It's not something that you access through spending countless hours working on yourself. It's not something that you access through spending countless hours in meditation. It's something that you access through your peace, through your vulnerability, through your truth. Acceptance is the fastest path to oneness. Acceptance. So, a couple of things. We have a powerful opportunity to end the year together in a one-day online immersion. I don't want you to waste another year setting goals, making resolutions, working on yourself, spending countless hours and countless resources that you barely have to try and change things. I want you to stop participating in the imperfection economy. And I want you to opt out of the adaptation industry. I want you to be empowered in the stillness that is the truth of you. If that sounds like a good use of your time, and you'd like to begin this year from a whole new place, I'll see you for that one-day online immersion. All of the info is on the website. Please remember that this powerful time continues on for the next 3 days. Meet yourself with love, with empathy and compassion. And know that it was never your fault. It was never your fault. You were an innocent little kid. It was not your fault. Not your fault. Therefore, it's not your responsibility. That one-day online immersion will also be recorded, because it's going to be one for the ages. Also, for those of you that are on YouTube, hit the bell button and subscribe, in case you haven't figured it out by now. We're not in the adaptation industry over here. This is about the empowerment of you and yourself and the liberation of all that you are. Feel the difference. Spend your time here, and you'll begin to experience what hundreds of thousands of people like you have experienced from all over the world. Completion. Wishing you all a wonderful holiday season. Wishing you all a wonderful holiday season. Be well. Till the next time, which for those of you on YouTube will be next year. Be well. For those of you in the Call to Come community, I'll see you, I believe, on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. To be determined. Bye-bye.